Hey, my name's Cole McRae, and this is Beyond Keywords, the advanced digital marketing podcast.
Beyond Keywords.
Oh man, guys, I am so excited. Today, I'm going to be talking to Rand Fishkin. I have been reading his work and following what he has to say since I started this career years ago. So that's happening later, though. And that was the part of the title that probably interested a lot of people, featuring and then Rand Fishkin. But let's talk about the part of the title before the part that got you all excited. The preparing for the world. Wait, no, that wasn't the title. The title is Preparing for the End of Clicks. Now, did that title scare you a little bit? Maybe not, but it's a title. But it scared me just a little bit because my entire career has been based off of clicks. When I started, I did AdWords for the first time. Clicks were kind of paramount. SEO, it doesn't really matter if you don't get clicks. And doing any kind of programmatic or display campaigns, if you don't get clicks, why bother, right? Except, well, that's what we're going to talk about, because sometimes you don't need them, but that's a whole other thing. So this podcast was inspired by my love of brand. I've known for quite some time that the better your brand, the lower your end of funnel CPA is. The math does work out every single time. It doesn't matter how expensive a click is in AdWords, for example, if your CPA is insanely low. Like, what if you can pay $200 a click if every single one of those clicks turns into a sale that makes you a lot more in revenue? It's a win-win. So brand generally helps with that, because if people really like your brand or trust your brand, it's a lot easier to get them through a funnel and get to that sale at the end. So that is one part, just brand. But I don't know if you've seen, but I wrote an article not too long ago called The Hard Truth. Clicks will only get more expensive and harder to get, which is kind of depressing if you think about it. But because of the insane amount of competition out there and the insane amount of people getting online, people making websites, people doing their own AdWords, people doing their own digital marketing in general, the amount of SEO, content strategy, every company on earth now has a content strategy. Because of that, people are inundated with stuff. And that stuff, you have to find what you want out of it, so you ignore a lot more of it. And that equals to a huge top of funnel and very few people actually clicking below that. So I did a bunch of research. I looked up a bunch of data. The first one, actually, remember how I said I'm going to talk to Rand Fishkin? He actually wrote a blog post on his SparkToro site specifically about Google on paid search and organic. And he found a lot of really interesting things. But one of the ones that I found was really, really, really useful is that CTR on mobile, which is Google's biggest growth area, because there's no growth on desktop, but the mobile is definitely a huge area for growth. CTR is dropping and has been for a long time. Not only that, in mobile, no-click searches is hugely on the rise. So Google's trying to answer people's questions without them needing to click anything, which if you're Google, makes perfect sense. Keep them on the site. They get money for the ads if you actually click through, I guess, but it also means people keep coming back to the site because it's answering their question. No need for the extra click. Google does not want you clicking. But that's only one area. What other areas are we seeing similar results in? Well, I saw it in, he had paid search. I saw it in another thing for paid search. So I'm reading through my notes. My notes are very thorough, so sometimes I get lost easily. But so he had his own research that showed that. My research, I found, in Q4 2017, year-over-year CPC growth accelerated across the board, including brand and non-brand campaigns, shopping, text ads, mobile, etc. So you're combining this fact that CTR is dropping, but growth in terms of cost is accelerating. The cost for those clicks is going way up, and you're getting a lot less of them. Now, this is just on paid search. In general, you're going to get way less clicks in the organic results, or you're going to have to pay more to get clicks through paid. But the other side is, what about outside of Google? Social is another one. So BuzzSumo, they've released a pretty danging report, because I'm not going to swear on my podcast, I guess. Maybe I do. So they reviewed 100 million articles in 2017, and they found that sharing has halved since 2015. And the volume of content continues to increase. So people are sharing less, but there's more content getting out there. And if you look at the social media sites and talk to them, or not talk to them, but notice what they're saying. They're saying things like, here's a quote from Facebook. Now, this is the quote. Now, we'll also consider whether a potential interaction is between two people or between a person and a page. Person to person will be more valuable than person to page. Connections with people in your network will get the biggest boost because interacting with people you're close to is more meaningful. It's not that scary of a line, but think of the actual implications of that. They're saying it's people to people. Now, a lot of marketing or content strategy on Facebook is simply to post links to blog posts or links to your videos, that kind of thing. What they're saying is that's going to get a lot less value within their algorithm because they prefer person to person, which is one-to-one communication. That's things like using their messenger product and all that, which is fine, but it also requires a lot more work to do that kind. You can't just post all your blog posts to your Facebook page and get interaction because of that. The other thing is, so anything that you probably, like this goes beyond pages. This was specific to pages, but if you think about it, the Facebook algorithm, if you've noticed, the Facebook algorithm no longer is giving huge amounts of reach to anyone who posts just a link. If I post my blog on my own personal Facebook, I'm not getting much reach at all. Now, if I write a big, long rant on Facebook directly, I'm suddenly getting lots of reach. LinkedIn has a similar thing going on. You post a native video to LinkedIn, it's going to be huge. You post a LinkedIn article, it's going to get a lot more reach than if you post a link to your blog. Now, that's not good if you like to own your own platform and not have to go to every platform and do custom things for every platform. Do you have the resources for that kind of work? The other thing I looked at was email. Another classic marketing strategy. Having an email list, everyone says is the best thing you could do. If you have an email list, there's amazing things you could do with that email list. The problem is that people just aren't opening or clicking things within emails anymore. Epsilon, I can't pronounce it, but all of this is available in the article, and I'll link to the article in the blog post for this podcast. Q3 2017, it showed that CTR for emails is down to 3.1% in Q3 of 2017. That's compared to 3.5% in Q3 of 2015. Another interesting drop is in terms of opens from Q2 2017 to Q3 2017. They dropped from 33.8 in Q2 to 31.2 in Q3. This just continues the trend I see in social. People are sick of things like clickbait headlines. So I don't know, I didn't mention that, but BuzzSumo also found that things that are clickbaity are no longer being shared at all. People just don't care anymore. People are sick of clickbait. And Actually, I will talk about this a little bit, probably later in this podcast. Clickbait sucks, and it's probably here because of A/B testing. People are trying to get more clicks, and they did a whole bunch of A/B testing, and A/B testing to click only gets you so far because you can get clicks, but people hate your brand because you're using clickbait. It's awful. You're not going to get sales. A/B testing needs to be to sales, which are much, much slower, and A/B testing is not good to slow things like that. That's something I'll talk about I'll actually link to it in the blog. I wrote an article about that, the downfalls of A/B testing. Just be careful with your A/B testing. Don't focus on clicks. So if you're A/B testing email subject lines, do remember sales matter, not just opens of your email, because you might increase opens but decrease sales at the end of the line. So in summary, Google is answering people's questions so you don't have to. Well, can't. Social is keeping people from going to your site. And email is just getting less and less effective overall. Now, Andrew Chen, if you don't know, has a law of click-through rates, or law of bad click-through rates. It's a swear word actually in reality, but I'm not going to say it. And you have a climate where you have to just be constantly innovating just to keep your head above water. And most companies don't have the actual resources to do that. I certainly don't. So this brings me to, what do you do about it? What do you do about less clicks? You want to get a sale, you have to get a click. You want to have A/B tests on your landing page. You need people to get to your landing page. But what if they stop doing that? Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention is, of course, all the research showing that people are going to be using the Google Voice more and more, using the Google Home. And I have a bunch of Google Home Minis, and I use it tons, and I don't need to actually go to a website for that. Google just answers questions and controls my TV and stuff. That's just a little aside. Back to, but what do you do about it? It's important to consider the ramifications of no longer getting those clicks, and instead thinking about, well, what do you have control over? And this is where I want to talk about brand. digital marketers in general haven't been great about considering brand. There have been lots of advertising agencies great at brand. There's been a lot of marketers on the traditional sense that are fantastic at brand, but digital has always been focused on performance marketing, which is just getting the sale regardless of brand. And this is where you get things where people, try to control the SERPs by creating 3 AdWords accounts and all 3 are just to different websites, but they're all controlled by the same company. That kind of stuff is brought on by performance marketers, not brand marketers. So, as I said at the start, brand decreases your CPA. By having a better brand, your CPA is low. I see this firsthand working in the insurance space. Insurance keywords are expensive. Having a good brand makes it easier that you can swallow those high click expenses because you get really good sales at the end of the line. So what things affect brand? Well, Rand Fishkin is going to talk about this a bit later in the actual interview portion, but I want to talk about it now, which is impressions, all forms of impressions. So Rand focuses specifically on search impressions. If someone searches for something and your page happens to be there, you can still control what's in the title tag and the meta description. And instead of trying to get a click with that, you leave people with impression is probably the right word for it, an impression of your brand. You leave them with a feeling about your brand based on just noticing that you got the impression as they are scrolling through search results. I want to take it further, though, and look at things like your email subject lines. They may not be opening your emails, but they see the subject line, and that affects the brand. Things like social. They may see your posts even if they never actually interact with them. Things like display campaigns. Display actually has meaning. Display is important. There are so many digital marketers out there that don't do programmatic or display because they don't see results right away. People don't click display ads because why would anyone click a display ad? But that's because it's supposed to connect to your brand. People see your display ad and then later on click through another channel to your website, and then you have a lower click-through rate a lower cost per action because they saw that display ad. I've looked at a lot of different, the word isn't even coming to me now. Attribution, that's the word I was looking for. I've gone through many different forms of attribution reports, and every single time, if display is anywhere in a user journey, it lowers the end cost of the sale. It's important to have that display campaign, and that's another kind of impression. And it's all based on brand. Now, do you see the big issue here? You can't A/B test that because brand takes forever to measure. There are things like brand lift and that you could look at when you do a video campaign or something, but in the end, it's just not something where you instantly get that feedback 2 weeks later that this experiment was better than the normal one. So the experiment was better than the original kind of thing. That's what I was looking for there. The reality is that you need to talk to those classic marketers. Those people who have been doing the radio campaigns and TV campaigns and getting results from it. They can teach you a lot about brand and getting that emotional feel. They give those classic psychological triggers like the need to belong, the need to solve their problem is only one part, but there's a whole bunch of others. Look at the hierarchy of needs. The need to feel safe and protected and secure. The need to feel trust with your company. You can do all that with your display campaigns, with your email subject lines, with your search meta descriptions and meta keywords without having to, not meta keywords. Wow. Don't use meta keywords. That's old school. Don't worry about that. But I think you know what I mean. It's all about impression marketing. And when you get all those impressions, you need to really focus on your remarketing. So you try to get all these people who've had impressions, and then you make sure you take those same people and put them into remarketing campaigns, maybe upper middle funnel, you could call that, and making sure that they re-engage with your brand. And then you take them down the funnel properly and just have a nice, slow process through your funnel. That's what's going to get you the results in a clickless world. Now, obviously, it's not completely clickless. I'm assuming that after enough impressions, they'll finally click through to your brand. And there's a lot of creative ways to do that. Well, I think that's enough of me talking all by myself. How about I bring on my guest for today? Today, I am talking with Rand Fishkin. He probably doesn't need much of a introduction, especially for digital marketers. He is the founder of Moz, well, co-founder, I believe. After reading his book, he founded it with his mother, formerly known as SEO Moz, as well as the brand new Spark Toro, which is not fully live yet, but I'm very excited. Let's get started. Thank you for coming on, Rand. Can you please start with the question I ask everyone? Who are you, and what do you do?
Sure. I'm Rand Fishkin. I'm the founder of several companies. Moz is probably the best known of those, which I started many years ago as a blog, and then it became a software company. I am now the founder of Spark Toro, which is another software company that is just getting started. I also co-founded inbound.org with Dharmesh Shah from HubSpot, and I'm a speaker. I just published a book called Lost and Founder. So, I'm not busy at all.
So, you released a blog post not too long ago called New Data, How Google's Organic and Paid CTRs Have Changed 2015 to 2018. And you found a lot of interesting findings, but the one I found most interesting was, centered around the lack of clicks, which is this whole podcast theme. Can you maybe go into detail about what you wrote about and what your findings were and basically what you suggest?
Sure. So the blog post is based on a lot of data that I gathered from JumpShot, who's a clickstream provider. So they monitor, activity across millions of browsers in the US and around the world. And basically what we're seeing is the first ever decline in the number of clicks available coming from Google. And that's not because search isn't growing. Search is actually growing quite a bit. It's still growing at about 10, 11% year over year. So Google is getting more and more searches. It's just that they're sending fewer of those clicks, especially on mobile, to websites. So Google is reserving a lot, they're answering a lot of questions right in the SERP itself, and they are also reserving a lot of that traffic for themselves, right? So now if you click on a local business result, you go to Google Maps, or, if you do a flight search, you get Google's flight results, or, if you search for a bunch of destinations, information about that. So in a lot of these cases, Google's taking care of the searcher without any website being involved. And because of that, it's my belief, and what you mentioned in the blog post that I wrote about, is that on SERP SEO, on the search engine result pages, the SEO that we do to influence what that looks like, what information Google's presenting there, how they're presenting it, what they're saying. What I was saying is it's going to be even more important to worry about what appears on that search result for your branded terms than just where you rank and whether you get the click. I think that the fundamental shift is that we monitor things that are happening in the ecosystem around us, in addition to what's just happening on our own websites. So you have web analytics, right, that tell you, here's how many visits you got, and here's where they clicked on your site, and here's how many of them made a purchase or did whatever activity you want them to do. But in addition to that, you need to be thinking about what happened when people were exposed to my brand on, a social platform, or were exposed to my email newsletter, even though they didn't end up clicking through, or were exposed to search results for branded terms, or even unbranded terms where I show up and answer the user's query, but I don't necessarily draw the click. And that's a very different way of thinking about measurement than what we've done in the past.
So Spark Toro, your new company, is going to be focused mainly on influencer marketing, which a lot of people kind of see as, these days, you find someone on Instagram and you give them a bunch of money and then they sell your product. Where do you think it could go? What do you prefer?
I think that's one problem, but actually an even deeper problem that I see is that because the term influencer marketing, which I actually try not to use around Spark Toro because I think it's come to mean something that is not what marketers should be defaulting to. But influencer marketing has sort of come to mean, I find people on Instagram or Twitter or whatever with high follower counts, and I pay them money, or I send them free products, or I send them on this trip, and then they write about it or amplify my brand. And that is one form of marketing. It can work for some brands in some spaces, but I think it is far too narrow a definition than what I'm comfortable with, right? I think what all marketers should be doing is considering who is my audience, to what and to whom do they pay attention? And oftentimes that's not just an influencer on Instagram, that's a podcast that they listen to. It's people they follow on LinkedIn. It's publications that they read. It's traditional news media that they watch and consume. It's YouTube channels they pay attention to. It's events that they go to. And I see a big disconnect with marketers not thinking broadly enough about the sources that influence their audience and needing to think that way, because it's getting harder and harder to reach audiences, and these publications and people already reach your audience. So if you can get in front of them, you often have a much lower cost of customer acquisition and a much better chance to reach them with your message.
Awesome. Could you maybe give an example of how you might do it with a new company? Now, I know, of course, you're running a new company, SparkToro, but how would you go about it for someone other than SparkToro?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you a good example. I was hanging out with a friend of mine. His name is Jacob Van Wingen, and he runs a small game studio. I think it's only him and two other folks here in Seattle, Washington. And they've come out with they're about to come out with a new game. He's made a few games in the past. But he's talking about, okay, how do I reach the gamers that I want to reach? Who are the people who will be likely to play this game and to amplify it and to, buy it off Steam and help me get picked up by a major publisher if I decide to go that route, all those kinds of things. And, in our conversation, Jake told me, Rand, the way we've been thinking about this is we have a few people who we know in the industry who will write about what we do because we're friends with them, and then there's a few sort of power gamers on Twitch that are followed by a number of folks. But what I wish I could do is I wish I could say, hey, we know that these people right here who follow this YouTube channel and these people on Twitch and this Twitter account, we know that they're right people for us. Can you go find me more publications, more outlets, more blogs, more podcasts, more Twitch accounts that all of these people, these gamers, pay attention to? And I was like, yes, that is exactly what SparkToro is designed to do, right? That's the big goal. And I think that is a true challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs of all different kinds, right? I mean, Jake's not a marketer by trade. He's a video game programmer. And I think this is a hard problem to try and solve, to figure out, hey, who does my audience pay attention to?
Awesome. That's perfect. So one thing you've talked about in your blog that I've actually talked about a lot in my podcast is the idea of personas. And in fact, many of my guests have talked about it, but you seem to be kind of not so for them, which is very interesting. And I was hoping you could maybe discuss that a bit.
Yeah. So personas, right? Traditionally, personas in marketing are like, you take a theoretical aggregation of demographic and psychographic data, and then you put together this like fake, human being who usually has a ridiculous name like, Maven Mary or, Rockin' Rob. I don't know why they're always alliterative. But these are people who don't actually exist. And then they're supposed to exemplify your customer target. And you do, product development and marketing based on these persona attributes. And I don't know, I kind of think it's bunk. Here's why. Because you can't go to Rockin' Rob and say like, hey, Rob, what do you think about this? Rob only exists, on a whiteboard in your office and in like a little presentation you've created for your marketing team. There's no human being you can go talk to. So I really like real people who are your customers and having conversations with them and using them as your example. And this is sort of part of the goal behind SparkToro is to be able to take a large aggregation of, all right, we have 2,700 gamers in our database who follow this, this person on Twitch that Jake is trying to reach with his new game. And what other, if we look at a Venn diagram overlap of what else those 2,700 people link to, share, talk about, follow, subscribe to, what are those places, right? And it might be, this gaming magazine, and it's this podcast, and it's these YouTube channels. Jake, you should go make relationships with those people, right? Far better than him sort of building a persona and being like, okay, I think my demographics we're going to say that Rockin' Rob is between 25 and 35 and, male and white. And okay, I don't know. Doesn't seem as helpful to me. So, I mean, that audience research, right? Audience intelligence is what we're calling SparkToro as a product. And I think that is the way a lot of marketers think about it. Personas, I think, has a formal definition, right? A persona is, a fake human being with a bunch of attributes that a product development and marketing team will use to execute their project. But I tend to not be a huge fan of persona-driven efforts, but I know very smart marketers who like them a lot.
So you've given a fantastic example for a company that maybe has a bit of a following already or already has customers. How would you go about this for a company that might be brand new or for a brand new idea that doesn't exist yet?
Right. So in that case, the idea is that you would search for your topic. So let's say you're starting a new lighting design company and you want to sell to interior decorators on the West Coast of the United States. So you might enter, interior decorators, and then SparkToro would go find a bunch of profiles of people who are professional interior decorators and then look at the overlap of what they pay attention to. And then you could filter and say, I only want people on the West Coast. I only want, I'm only looking for podcasts first, or I'm only looking for Instagram accounts, or I only want to go to blogs first, or, whatever, what have you. And then it would say like, okay, well, it turns out this, Architectural Digest podcast is very well listened to by a lot of these interior decorators. Awesome. Great. That one. Oh, that worked really well. Next time I use SparkToro, I'm going to plug in that particular podcast. Tell me what else those people follow, because that was very successful for me. Or don't show me people who, who paid attention to this YouTube thing, because those people did not convert for us.
That sounds a hell of a lot better than contacting some random person on Instagram because they have a huge following and giving them a bunch of free stuff or selling.
Oh my God. It's such a terrible idea. We all know it's a terrible idea. And yet, because there's no alternatives, we just kind of do it, right? And what do? We find a bunch of people with lots of followers, and then we click on them and we try and, examine their last, 50 or 60 posts. And maybe we'll talk to some people who it looks like they've worked with before to try and figure out if they're effective. And that process can just be, incredibly time consuming, also extraordinarily expensive. We talked to a bunch of companies who pay $20, $30, $40,000 literally for a list from a PR firm, of here's who you should go target.
That actually sounds a lot like link building, which is something I absolutely hate.
Don't we all? But I mean, fundamentally, link building and PR and influencer marketing are all in the same mold of this, discover, write people in publications, earn amplification from them in order to reach your target audience. And I think that this audience intelligence database that we're building, hopefully long term, will be able to help with any and all of those things.
So kind of circling back in our discussion of brand, which is another one of those things that I'm calling unmeasurable, but do you think there are ways to measure it or get a better idea of how this influencer marketing is affecting brand and how other things you're working on affect brand?
Yeah, this is actually an area where I think Google Trends can be hugely helpful for you. So tracking a product name or a brand name and its search volume over time can give you a really good estimate of how often and where and when people are thinking about your brand, right, or your product. And I highly, highly recommend that folks use Google Trends for this kind of thing. It's also helpful to look at direct traffic to your website and to look at branded search, volume and traffic. So if you're bidding on your branded terms, right, you get actual numbers of here's how many impressions, how many times your ad was shown. And so we get a better sense of that. Another thing that you can do as well, certainly, is to look at your social profiles and their growth in impression count and followers. So as your brand gets bigger and better known, you will find more people clicking like on your Facebook page, more people, following you on Twitter, more people following you on LinkedIn, whatever the platform is that is most is the best match with your particular audience. Sometimes that's Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is. I think those things can be helpful, especially if you have some of those channels that you are not actively investing in. So say, hey, we have a Twitter account. We don't really do much with it. Oh, but look, it is growing in followers. Why is that? It is because we have achieved more exposure, more brand exposure on Twitter due to the campaigns we've been running. That makes sense, right? Same thing with Google. We look at search trends. We see that our brand is getting searched for 3 times as much this month as it was last month. Okay, that's a lot more people thinking about our brand, knowing who we are, considering us, those kinds of things.
Do you have any thoughts on how you've handled brand in the past? Maybe regrets?
Let's see. I would say historically, I significantly underinvested in brand, and I also underestimated brand as a powerful mover. I think that, I think a lot of people in SEO did in the early days, right? We were like, why wouldn't you just try and rank for this thing and get all this traffic and you're number one? That's the goal, as opposed to, hang on a minute, by being this big brand, I might actually get more searches for my brand, which I'll always rank for, versus trying to compete for the unbranded search term. I mean, there's a lot more people searching for Amazon than there are for people for buy things online. There's a lot more searches for Netflix than there are for, watch movies over the internet.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, Beyond Keywords. I'm going to give you a chance to plug basically anything you want at this point. So is there anything you want people to check out right now?
Okay, sure. Thank you. Well, let's see. I guess if some of the stories that we've talked about today are interesting, Lost and Founder has lots more detail about that. But there's also a free product that SparkToro made, a little side project called Trending, that is trying to be kind of a tech meme or a hacker news for web marketers. And so if you go to Twitter and you scroll through your feed and you're spending 10, 15 minutes trying to find the interesting stories every time, you can check out SparkToro Trending for free, connect your Twitter account, and it'll try and show you what web marketers are talking about in 10 seconds. And there's sort of a list of 25, top stories at any given time that everyone's talking about in the field. And that's, I've been very happy with that product. It's saved me a lot of time.
Thank you so much for coming on my podcast, Rand Fishkin. I really appreciate it. You're kind of royalty to me. And thank you, listener, for listening. This is Beyond Keywords.
I don't know why.